So, the favorite topic of conversation when it comes to an argument for a couple many times is where are we going to eat, right? Like if you have been married or in a relationship for any length of time at all, you know that's a common disagreement. Where are we going to go eat? What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. I don't care. Just pick something, right? And then by the time it's all said and done, we're also frustrated like we're just eating a sandwich or something out of the cabinet because we can't agree on where it is that we're going to go. And I think that is really common among any type of really relationship, but especially in marriage. That's one of those common fights. Chances are, I suspect, that there are other common fights within your relationship that you can think about. Maybe it's about money, or about taking a trip, or about the kids, or work, or anything, you name it. You can probably tell me what that is, and I bet too that you can probably tell me the cycle of what that relationship or that argument rather is going to look like. What are you going to say? What's the other person going to say? How are they going to respond to you after you say something critical? How are you going to respond after they're harsh and rude? And nothing ever really gets solved, right? But yet we keep on arguing over it time and time again. You know, we finally come to some type of resolution on where we're going to go eat, but tomorrow night we're going to do the same thing all over again, and here we go. Here's the cycle all over. You know, I think one of the problems that we face in relationships is that we spend too much time fighting over the small stuff. Have you ever noticed that? Like a lot of times these fights that you have with your spouse tend to be things that in the grand scheme of things don't necessarily matter, but those are the ones that we gravitate toward. Meanwhile, the big issues are the ones that continue to get swept under the rug until there's a big blow up. And then that's the point where people are talking about separating or divorcing, or at the very least, that's when they tend to call our office because they've had that big blow up. And then, things might get resolved and it might settle down for, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, and then we have a big blow up again. And then the cycle continues and repeats itself yet again. So my point is, arguing over the small stuff doesn't make the big stuff go away. Just because we're sweeping it under the rug and we're choosing to focus our anger on the small things that probably, quite frankly, don't really matter, it doesn't mean that those big issues are being dealt with. It just means that we're continuing to stuff, and we're just waiting until the next time that we have a big blow up and a big fight and a disagreement, and then we're not speaking for several days before we want to deal with it. But even then, at that point, we're so frustrated over those small things that when the big thing does come, we don't really know how to get past it. And so, yet again, we go in that cycle. So it's time to stop that cycle. The first step in that is really to stop fighting over the small stuff. There are so many simple solutions to so many small problems. For example, the restaurant issue. If you're constantly arguing with your better half about where you're going to go eat, grab yourself a pack of popsicle sticks and write down all the restaurants in town on it, or the ones that the two of you like to go eat at. And then when the inevitable conversation comes of where do you want to go eat, I don't know, where do you want to go eat, grab the popsicle sticks and pull one out, and the two of you have to commit. That's where you're going to go. Now, obviously, in this scenario, if you pull out a popsicle stick and you're like, I don't really want that, then the whole process has defeated its purpose, its own purpose, and it's not going to work. But if you stick to that, that's a simple way to find a resolution. There are easily ways to find simple resolutions to some of the other small issues that you and your spouse continue to have these never-ending fights about. I will tell you that the issue and the resolution is usually not, it isn't found by saying that you're the one that's right. Typically, I've found when couples fight and argue and disagree, there's nobody right in the relationship because we've both screwed up. So, find those simple solutions. That's step one. Step two, when you do find those simple solutions, deal with the small issue and then let it go. Don't bring it back up 3 months from now when you're fighting about something different. It's not going to do any good. A, it's already dealt with, and B, bringing it up is only going to start the argument over again. And if you've dealt with it, like I talked about in the first step, then there's really no reason to bring it up at all. So stay on task. And then 3, do be willing to have conversations about the big stuff, and not just when things are flying off the handle and you're ready to strangle the other person. Have these important conversations when things are calm, because then you have the opportunity to find real resolution rather than this ending in another fight where the two of you don't speak to each other for hours or for days. There are a lot of instances where there are some really big issues underneath the surface that one person doesn't bring up because they don't want to start a fight, or they're afraid that it's going to cause too much harm in the relationship. Those things still need to be dealt with, but maybe it isn't something that you can deal with on your own. Maybe you do need to have a third party involved. That could be a trusted friend or mentor of both of you. That could be your pastor, someone else in leadership at your church that you trust. Maybe it is a counselor or a therapist. It doesn't always have to be if it's an issue that the two of you think you can get through, but you do need kind of that third party there to help you walk through it and maybe give some of their own insights. All of those things are okay, but it's important first to learn how to deal with those smaller disagreements when they come up. It's so common in relationships for folks to struggle and fuss and fight over the stuff that really doesn't matter. And I encourage you, if you're not sure whether the thing that you're dealing with is a big thing or a small thing, ask yourself, is this going to matter a year from now, or 3 years from now, or 5 years from now? In reality, is this going to matter a week from now, or are we just continuing to fight over the same old things all over again? Remember, the cycle is always going to repeat itself until we do something to break it. And so I encourage you to take some steps today to start breaking that cycle.